Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to dive into a fascinating relationship between immunity, psyche, and overall health, tracing their interconnected roles from ancient wisdom to modern science. And it is my hope that at the very least, you open your mind to a refreshing, empowering new way to approach your health. I'm Eli Abela, Biohacking Pioneer of the Philippines and GHk Philippines founder. GHk stands for Germanische Heilkunde, or Germanic Healing Knowledge. My journey has led me to explore the immense power of the human body and mind, focusing on how we can optimize health, performance, and longevity by tapping into our innate biological intelligence. As a Germanische Heilkunde certified consultant and educator, I've spent the past 3 years using GHk as a framework and teaching others on how to understand the natural biological laws that govern our health. In this session, we'll explore the deep connection between immunity and psyche in shaping health. Beginning with foundational definitions, we'll trace how ancient and modern societies have understood immunity and the critical role of the psyche in overall health. And this sets the stage for Dr. Ryke Geerd's insights into the psyche-brain-organ connection, showing how emotional conflicts can manifest in the body, forming the basis of Germanische Heilkunde, or Germanic Healing Knowledge. Our goal today is to build a more integrated understanding of health rooted in these profound ideas. If I asked you or any person on the street, what is immunity? You would most likely find the answer that it is our body's natural defense system, protecting us from infections, diseases, and foreign invaders. In today's terms, we understand immunity to be divided into 2 types. Innate immunity, the immediate non-specific response that we were born with. Again, the idea of foreign invaders that we need to protect ourselves from. And adaptive immunity, which develops as we're exposed to new pathogens. Now, the idea was always to protect ourselves from the danger of harmful substances that we cannot see coming. We are warding off danger from disease because we look at it as harmful. Why is it harmful? Because it can kill us. When we look at innate immunity, we look at it as our body's immediate non-specific defense system against pathogens, working as the first barrier against infections. It includes an intricate network of cells and organs such as the skin, mucous membranes, epithelial barriers, and ninja killer cells. And what are these harmful substances? Well, of course, fungi, parasites, bacteria, viruses, and toxins. These foreign invaders that cause harmful diseases that can kill us. And what are these immune cells? Macrophages, dendritic cells, and natural killer cells rapidly detect and attack pathogens, limiting infection spread. Lymph nodes in the spleen coordinate this response, paving the way for adaptive immunity if needed. So what is adaptive immunity? A specialized defense system that builds over time, allowing the body to target specific pathogens. When exposed to new invaders, these cells create antibodies tailored to neutralize them. And these antibodies help remember pathogens for faster, stronger responses to future infections, forming the foundation of long-lasting immunity, whether from prior infection or vaccination. And this idea of building immunity, the idea of building resistance, or becoming stronger in the fight against disease has become a global phenomenon. Ancient civilizations like those in Egypt, China, and India sought to strengthen immunity through herbal remedies, spiritual practices, and dietary guidelines, believing in a natural balance that safeguarded health. Even then, there was already the mind, body, and spirit connection having relevance to overall health. In the Middle Ages, concepts like quarantine and sanitation emerged in response to widespread plagues, recognizing the importance of containing disease. The Black Death was devastating, killing 30 to 50% of Europe's population between 1348 and 1351, with 75 to 200 million lives lost. In response to Europe's smallpox epidemics, Dr. Edward Jenner created the first vaccine in 1796. Observing that the cowpox exposure prevented smallpox, he used cowpox to successfully inoculate against the deadly disease, pioneering vaccination. Smallpox claimed the lives of many royals, including significant figures such as King Louis XV of France, Habsburg Emperor Joseph I, Queen Mary II of England, and Russia's Tsar Peter II. The disease also affected nobility beyond Europe, reaching rulers in countries like Ethiopia, China, and Japan. So there was really this drive to prevent and eradicate disease, looking at disease as the enemy. And these advancements transformed immunity from a largely mysterious force into a targeted scientific approach. Over time, immunity equates to disease prevention. And today, global health initiatives continue to build on this legacy, promoting vaccination, nutrition, and hygiene as foundations for a resilient immune system. And it has gone viral, pun intended. The craze to stop disease and build immunity is such a marketable concept. Adaptive immunity has become a worldwide craze as global health efforts to strengthen immunity have been a major focus for international organizations and governments, investing billions in initiatives like vaccination campaigns, sanitation improvements, and disease prevention programs. Organizations such as the World Health Organization and the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization have collectively invested over $10 billion annually to enhance global immunization coverage, reducing diseases like polio, measles, and the flu. In 2020 alone, the United Nations and WHO allocated $2 billion to support global vaccination drives during the COVID-19 pandemic, showcasing the importance and financial commitment toward fostering a resilient immune system worldwide. And of course, because of the desperation during the COVID pandemic, there came an explosion in the biohacking and alternative health field in preventing disease and building immunity. Special thanks to pioneers like my mentor, Dave Asprey, and others like Ben Greenfield and Peter Attia. And now even Tony Robbins is into it, having just written a book called Life Force. When we look at the definition of biohacking, we look at it as manipulating your external internal environment to take full control of your biology instead of letting it control you. Biohacking, of course, isn't just for men. Pioneering women like Carrie Bennett, Natalie Needham, Primal Bod Candy Fraser, and myself are driving the movement forward with a special focus on optimizing women's health. We are trailblazers, empowering women to take control of their biology, ensuring that vitality, performance, and optimal health are achievable for every phase of our lives. And it's all about control. You control your biology so it doesn't control you. Self-empowerment, self-responsibility, and quantification. I am in charge of my own health. Since the pandemic demonstrated how the current health paradigm is not enough, so let's take our health into our own hands. I've been biohacking and controlling my own health and immunity through machines, free biohacks like breathwork, cold showers, time nutrition, circadian optimization, a little bit of supplementation, mindset techniques, and emotional regulation tools since 2015. Now, the beauty of biohackers is that we are working on innate immunity, not just adaptive immunity. We believe that the body has everything it needs to heal itself and put itself back together. We use biohacking simply to support the system and to provide fuel to these innate processes already in place. And so we look at inflammation as a wonderful thing and a sign that the body is doing what it's supposed to keep us alive. However, biohacking and alternative health movements also look at pathogens, bacteria, viruses as something to kill, fight, or destroy. Yes, we have innate immunity in place, and they are there to assassinate pathogens that cause disease and can kill us. Again, though biohackers and alternative health enthusiasts believe in innate immunity, it's still about disease prevention. Disease is bad. As biohackers, we obsess over a specialized form of ninja squad called T cells, which, when they learn about pathogens, They hold a memory so that they can kill the same pathogens that infect the organism in the future. So it's some kind of Jedi cells that are present in the body and prevent disease this way. So we want to support the power of these cells to assassinate these pathogens. And of course, the market for natural immunity is even bigger than the pharmaceutical industry, and the potential is exploding every year. Yes, people woke up during the pandemic and they got into the natural healing, but they're actually spending more for their immunity and disease prevention. But that's okay because it's organic and natural, so it's worth it. Within this market, dietary supplements alone accounted for about $140 billion in 2020, with significant investments in immune-boosting products like vitamin C and D, probiotics, and adaptogens. They're getting into the keto diet, and eating meat all day, every day is not cheap at all for the average Filipino. People are eating nothing but organic, and we all know how much organic puts a hole in our pockets. But it's worth it because it's so good for us, right? They're also spending for gadgets and Oura rings that are not cheap, but so worth it. And there are gadgets embedded every hour of the day somewhere in the world, just because the potential for biohacking is even bigger, estimated at $4.9 trillion by 2025. I think we would all agree that's a real cash cow right there. The beauty about biohacking is that it's holistic. It uses nature, science, technology, and personalized health practices to boost well-being. It kind of brought back ancient wisdom. In fact, we say that the ancients were the original biohackers because they really integrated mind, body, and spirit health, and they can never be separated if we want the best positive outcome. Somehow we lost that with modern medicine, but biohacking made it cool again. And I'm sure a lot of you have used life hacks in your wellness practices like meditation and breath work and gratitude journaling. Well, even plant medicine journeys, ayahuasca, or psychedelics. And hey, you actually have the word psyche in there. And these approaches all recognize the vital need for psyche balance to achieve optimal health. And now let's explore the wonderful world of the psyche. Psyche originates from the Greek word meaning soul, breath, or mind. The term psyche reflects a holistic view of human experience, and Psyche's story in Greek mythology is known as the goddess of soul and embodies self-discovery, resilience, and personal growth, symbolizing the balance of physical and spiritual beauty. And her journey offers insight into the ancient Greek values of character, emotional resilience, and mental aptitude, revealing the psyche as a blend of strong mind, spirit, and emotional depth. And when you look at these attributes, you're reminded of the journey that your favorite hero goes through in your favorite movie or novel. It seems that the test is more of the soul, the mind, and the spirit than physical prowess. Isn't this what Luke Skywalker went through, or Jack in Titanic, or Jon Snow in Game of Thrones? The psyche is foundational in understanding human behavior, emotions, and mental processes, influencing our responses to life's challenges and overall health. And recognizing the interconnectedness of these components is crucial, as the state of our psyche can significantly affect our physical health. When we look at somebody with anxiety or depression, we often say, this person's not healthy. This person could be super lean, eating salads, going for walks, taking supplements, but they have anxiety or depression. And we don't look at them as the picture of health. So why is that? Understanding the psyche enables us to appreciate how our thoughts, our feelings, and spiritual beliefs contribute to our overall well-being, emphasizing the need for a holistic approach to health that considers emotional and psychological factors. Psychology evolved from philosophy and physiology, exploring perception, sensation, and reality. Philosophers like René Descartes asked questions about mind-body duality and perception, while physiology brought scientific methods to predict outcomes and observe patterns. Together, they shaped psychology as a study grounded in philosophical inquiry and scientific observation. Psychology's roots trace back to early human curiosity about behavior and its causes. Ancient thinkers often viewed gods or spirits as controlling forces behind human actions, marking the first attempts to explain behavior through external animistic beliefs. Plato said that the mind or soul is distinct in its own right and is God-given. It enters the body with its reflected perfection of God and rules the body which it inhabits as knower, thinker, and determiner of actions. And he said that the soul is composed of three parts: the head, the heart, and the diaphragm or the abdomen. And this kind of sounds like the narrative nowadays of the three brains. We often call the three brains as the brain itself, the heart, and the abdomen. So the three brains theory in alternative health narratives kind of matches what Plato said about the three souls. Aristotle, a student of Plato, identified three functions of the soul: the vegetative soul, basic life functions; the appetitive soul, motives and desires; and the rational soul, governing function for reasoning. And he believed that the brain managed just the minor processes, while the soul directed the mind and the body. Galen linked human temperament to the bodily humors or vital fluids. Sanguine means you're cheerful. This is blood. Phlegmatic, you're calm and sluggish like phlegm. Melancholic, you're sad like black bile. And choleric, irritable, hot-tempered like yellow bile. He believed that the variations in these humors influence behavior and mood. And we often would also think about the vital fluids in Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. And then we would also look at Stoicism, which is actually a philosophy, but feels like it really fits in psychology. Stoicism was a Hellenistic philosophy that flourished in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. It taught that virtue is the key to a well-lived life, emphasizing four main virtues: wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice. It was founded by Zeno of Citium around 300 BCE. Stoics believed that virtue alone led to true happiness and resilience in the face of hardship. They saw external goods like wealth and health as neutral, valuable only for practicing virtue. And key figures like Seneca, Epictetus, and Emperor Marcus Aurelius embodied this approach, which saw revivals in both the Renaissance and today. Stoicism emphasizes self-control and fortitude to overcome destructive emotions, advocating for clear thinking to align with universal reason. And central to Stoicism is the belief that virtue is found in harmony with nature, which extends to interpersonal relationships by promoting freedom from anger, envy, and jealousy. The Stoic perspective is deterministic. Individuals lacking virtue are compared to a dog tied to a cart, compelled to follow. This person has a slave mind. A Stoic of virtue, by contrast, would amend his will to suit the world and remain, in the words of Epictetus, sick and yet happy, in peril and yet happy, dying and yet happy, in exile and yet happy, in disgrace and yet happy, thus positing a completely autonomous individual will, a will of choice. And one of the tenets of Stoicism is amor fati, love your fate, embracing one's life circumstances, including suffering and challenges, as necessary and meaningful parts of existence rather than obstacles to happiness. You are what you make your life. And Stoicism is a powerful mind biohack and is one of my favorite ways to keep myself centered and sane and always in the optimum state of mind, and is very much embraced by the modern world, popularized by the book The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, emphasizing the timeless value and efficacy of mastering your mind through virtue. We also look at theology. St. Augustine combined Platonic philosophy with Christian thought, using introspection to explore the faculties of the soul, such as will, memory, imagination, laying the groundwork for faculty psychology. St. Thomas Aquinas integrated Aristotelian ideas with Christian theology, emphasizing reason and the immortality of the soul which further shaped early psychological thought. The pre-modern period will find the likes of René Descartes, who formulated a theory of mind-body interaction, or biological psychology. Others would be John Locke, David Hume, and George Berkeley and his idea of immaterialism. All knowledge comes from perception. What we perceive are ideas. They are not things in themselves. A thing in itself must be outside experience. So the world only consists of ideas and minds that perceive those ideas. So a thing only exists so far as it perceives or it is perceived. Again, I wanted to emphasize perception because perception is such an important part of what I'm going to teach you today. Perception, perception, perception. And that brings us to modern psychology, also referred to as scientific psychology. Wilhelm Maximilian Wundt was a German physiologist, philosopher, and professor, one of the fathers of modern psychology. Wundt, who distinguished psychology as a science from philosophy and biology, was the first person ever to call himself a psychologist. Then we have Sigmund Freud, Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, a clinical method for evaluating and treating pathologies seen as originating from conflicts in the psyche through dialogue between patient and psychoanalyst. Freud also believed that dreams are a key to understanding the unconscious mind, serving as a means of wish fulfillment that reveals repressed desires and unresolved conflicts. This insight laid the groundwork for psychoanalysis, highlighting the importance of dream interpretation in psychological healing. How I wish he met Dr. Hammer. I wish that they lived at the same time because there are so many parallels. Key milestones in psychology include Pavlov's studies on conditioning in 1900, John Watson's behaviorist perspectives in 1913, Hans Berger's introduction of EEG in 1928, and Abraham Maslow, who is best known for developing the hierarchy of needs, a psychological theory that prioritizes human motivations ranging from basic physiological needs to self-actualization. His work emphasizes the importance of fulfilling these needs for personal growth and well-being. And I really want to emphasize these physiological needs because there really is something to what Maslow also was teaching. The timeline of psychological studies illustrates the evolution of understanding human behavior and mental processes. René Descartes laid the foundation for biological psychology, linking mind and body. Sir Francis Galton introduced inheritable traits, paving the way for genetics in psychology. Pavlov's work on conditioning defined behavioral psychology, while Max Wertheimer and Wolfgang Köhler contributed to Gestalt psychology, emphasizing perception. Fast forward to Jean Piaget, advanced cognitive psychology through developmental studies, and Richard Doob, who emphasized sociocultural psychology, investigating the influence of culture on behavior. Needless to say, the human psyche has been of great interest in the pursuit of the study of the human being and ultimately the optimization of health. Well, how much is your psyche worth? Recent analyses estimate U.S. mental health spending at $280 to $330 billion, covering outpatient and inpatient treatments, medication, and therapy. Around $30 billion is allocated annually to outpatient services, while significant resources go toward inpatient care, emergency interventions, and pharmaceuticals. This spending reflects a growing recognition of mental health's importance and efforts to meet diverse needs across psychological and psychiatric care. And all that money and nothing seems to be improving or working. In fact, it seems like no one is getting better, and the cases seem to be exponentially increasing with no hope of improvement in sight. So where is this money actually going? When you ask health institutions, they recommend stress management and work-life balance to improve mental and emotional well-being. So they promote practices like mindfulness, physical activity, 1 hour a day, Clear your work boundaries to prevent burnout. And try techniques such as deep breathing, time management, and regular breaks, which will help manage daily stress. And this will support resilience and long-term wellness. Well, it's been decades of time management and work-life balance, but nothing seems to be working. When we talk about strengthening your immune system, immediately people will say, oh, just eat fruits and vegetables, hydrate more, take vitamins and minerals, take supplements, go for walks, exercise an hour a day, don't drink, don't smoke, wear a face mask, sleep early, take medication for your cold, cough, or flu, manage your stress, and stay updated on your vaccines. But something just doesn't add up. How many of you know people who are health freaks or even health coaches who do these practices diligently and still get sick? Or they even die from a heart attack or get cancer. But you're fit as a fiddle. How can you get sick? How can he die? And then you have your next door neighbor who's 85, smokes and drinks, eats anything in front of the TV, and lives to 105. Then there are people in provinces or unhygienic areas who don't have money to buy expensive supplements or a spa date every month and are completely healthy. We know about immunity, we know about the psyche, and there is never a cure for cancer after decades of running marathons and finding a cure. But we spend trillions of dollars every year and we never get it right. And why does it feel like we've gotten worse? We've gotten weaker. With all of the trillions of dollars spent on research and products to increase immunity, why couldn't COVID be prevented? And there is so much money spent on adaptive immunity when we're looking at adaptation in all the wrong places. And that's because we don't have an immune system. Why is that? Let's go back to the oldest story in the world, the evolution of life. Our biology developed over billions of years for one thing only: survival. Human evolution from single-celled organisms to Homo sapiens highlights a journey of adaptation and survival. Over billions of years, life forms evolved increasingly complex traits, leading to humans' advanced cognitive and social abilities. These adaptations enabled humans to thrive in diverse environments, marking us as a highly adaptable species. We are always studying the environment, and there are billions of years old simple life forms that have formed a symbiotic relationship with all living things because they are necessary for maintaining biological macro and micro ecosystems. What are they called? Well, the foreign invaders we're supposed to be immune to. But guess what? We have trillions of them inside us, so the idea of protecting ourselves from them is already moot. We call them symbiotics. They have been studying us longer than we've been studying them. They live inside us and are purposefully inside us for a reason. We are only 10% human. Nature never makes mistakes. What's mistaken is our definition of harmful. Are they really harmful? Why would Mother Nature put 30 trillion of them inside us if they were harmful? Our bodies host around 100 trillion microbes across various regions. Our nose, gut, lungs, around 1,000 to 1,200 species that aid in digestion and nutrient absorption. Approximately 1,000 species live on the skin with unique communities in different areas. Each hand carries 150 to 300 species, often different between the left and right. The belly button, over 2,300 species, form a unique ecosystem. About 80 to 200 species thrive in the moist areas between the toes. A lot of it is the fungi. More than 700 species contribute to digestion and oral health. Breast milk contains 700 bacterial species for infants. And in vaginal birth, a newborn will encounter 300 to 400 species from the mother's vaginal microbiome. And these trillions of microbes play essential roles in digestion, immune training, and overall health. So this begs the question, why do I need protection? when there are trillions living within me? And here's where I will begin to elucidate the importance of the psyche, since we already know immunity is moot. We have to start from the beginning of life itself. Our evolution took billions of years and has one intention in mind: the survival of the species. Humans, well, we have 400 plus different emotions, maybe more. But when you look at a macro level, you'll see that there are only two: danger or safety. You could categorize one's feelings under just two. And evolution is all about danger or safety. If there was a wild pack of wolves, they will make all their decisions based on these two. Is it dangerous for my pack here, or is it safe for my pack here? And when we talk about danger, there is one emotion that encompasses everything, and that emotion is fear. And here we can look at how evolution designed us, specifically for the survival of the species. We are a walking antenna for danger or safety. Our autonomic nervous system is designed with two branches: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic branch is designed to address danger. The other is designed to welcome safety. And look at the intricate web of organs and nerves that make up our biology, purposefully evolved over time for our survival. This is an intricate connection between our psyche, brain, and organs for survival. We are literally a walking antenna of survival. And here's the sympathetic nervous system, also known as the fight or flight system and other F words. It readies the body for action in response to a challenge, distress, or threat. It increases heart rate, dilates pupils, and redirects blood to muscles, releasing adrenaline to quickly handle threats. And this system sympathizes with the body's need for survival, activating autonomic responses to perceive danger. It's called sympathetic because sym means together, and the system is calling upon different organs to respond to the needed energy to fight or flee. The key word here is danger. Then we look at the parasympathetic, or away from the sympathetic, known as the rest and digest system. It calms the body after stress. It decreases heart rate, enhances digestion, and promotes energy conservation. And there are other F words here too. It is activated during restful states. It allows for healing and restoration, ensuring efficient bodily functions. It is also known as rest and digest, and breed and feed. So only two branches. What exactly in the human being perceives danger or safety? One word: the psyche. The psyche is the antenna that picks up whether there is a threat to our survival or if we are safe and sound. We are getting closer to how the psyche is the key to immunity. So this begs the question: what are we trying to be immune from? Then we ask, what will the psyche perceive as dangerous? Anything that threatens our survival. And these are our primal fears, and the same threats or fears that we harbored as single-celled organisms until our current state as Homo sapiens. These are the real fears that our biology is coded to respond to for our very survival. If we need to be immune to anything, it is to be immune to these triggers, and we know that's impossible. We can scientifically prove this to be true based on a body of work that is based in natural sciences and complying with the biological laws of nature. And we call this work or Germanic Healing Knowledge, discovered by Dr. Ryke, Geerd, a German physician who pioneered this work and connecting the psyche, brain, and organ relay. He argued that unresolved emotional conflicts can manifest as a physical illness, with each disease triggered by a specific primal fear, transforming our understanding of health to emphasize mental and emotional well-being in physical healing. Set aside Descartes, Freud, Berkeley, Plato, Wundt. We have scientific evidence that the psyche is the key to optimal health, simply because of the psyche-brain organ relay. And this is not just plain mind-body connection. How did he discover this? Dr. Hammer was diagnosed with testicular cancer shortly after his son Dirk's death. The primal fear is a loss of an offspring, and the psyche perception is a loss conflict. And this is key. This was experienced as a shock. This is so key. Remember this phrase, conflict shock, as it is important in the activation of cancers and other conditions. Dr. Hammer's real advantage is the presence of modern technology in the form of a CT scan. They were brand new to science, and Dr. Hammer had access to them, and he was the head internist in an oncology ward. While working as head internist at a cancer clinic, he noticed that all his patients had experienced a similar intense emotional shock, loss of offspring, leading him to investigate the brain's role in bodily processes. He discovered a distinct ring-like structure in the same area of the brain as his other patients, now known as the Hammer focus or Hammerscherfherd, which was mapped to the testicles, and it was the same for himself and all these other patients. And this groundbreaking observation was essential for the development of Germanische Heilkunde, illustrating how modern technology contributed to understanding the cerebral processes behind disease. Dr. Hammer studied 60,000 CT scans and interviewed life situations of patients to collate this work, and the findings were predictable and replicable. Eventually, he studied not just cancer, but even the common cold, rashes, dandruff, periodontitis, arthritis, every single condition known in the health industry. We now know that psyche-perceived emotional conflicts are behind physical conditions as we know them in the health industry. Dr. Hammer's concept of the psyche-brain-organ connection suggests that psychological conflicts can lead to physical ailments in specific organs. Not just psychological, not just emotional. We call them psychobiological because the whole mind, brain, body responds to the distressful life situation. And through CT scans, we are able to connect the mind or psyche to the emotion or primal fear and the organ, the body, that responds to the life situation. Remember when I told you about the conflict shock? This shock is a life situation that is perceived by the psyche as distressful, and it synchronously activates the brain relay to the organ that needs to step up to the life situation. Our organs have their own psyche. They have very specific conflicts that they step up to, and they very much make biological sense. Organs evolved to respond to our primal fears since the beginning of life itself. When they respond to an emotional stress, we call that, again, psychobiological, not just emotional. And organs respond to a conflict shock. Remember when I mentioned that the word shock will be very important. We also know this as a biological conflict as it responds to a primal fear, or in GHk, it is called the Dirk-Hammer syndrome, or DHS, in memory of Dirk Hammer, who died in his arms. And this shock is a life situation that is perceived by the psyche as distressful, and a conflict shock needs to follow the following criteria. It is acute, it happens immediately, unexpected, it came from left field, you didn't see it coming, isolated, you feel all alone in this, and caught off guard. What am I going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. For example, if you saw in your bank account that it's zeroed down and you had millions in there, it's acute, unexpected, you feel all alone. Oh no, it's my fault. And caught off guard, what am I going to do? How am I going to pay for anything? How am I going to pay for this and that? What am I going to tell my husband? What am I going to tell my kids? You are caught off guard. This is a conflict shock. Otherwise, if it doesn't fall under these four criteria, then it's just an emotional event, not a shocking, perceived, distressful life event. For example, you're deeply saddened that the Pope passed away. It was acute and unexpected, but you didn't feel isolated. You weren't caught off guard. Therefore, it doesn't apply as a conflict shock. Now, we can look at these primal fears. We never expect that they would ever happen to us, and if they do, it comes as a conflict shock, and they are coded since the beginning of time. If they do happen, the psyche-brain organ relay starts to launch what we call a senseful biological special program. And we're changing what we call it because disease is always regarded as bad, as negative, the enemy. We need to fight disease. We need to prevent disease. When actually, evolutionarily, nature put it in place for our survival. And I know it's paradoxical. Again, we are looking at all the wrong places. And now, because of modern technology and one man's passion to discover and share the truth, we can finally control our biology because we understand it. Let's take Dr. Hummer's case in point. He had testicular cancer 3 months after his son died in his arms, and the psyche perceived a lost conflict. And in the brain relay, we can see a Hammerscher herd or Hammer focus on the CT scan. And at the same time, the organ that responds to the life situation are the testicles. And we call this a senseful biological special program and not a disease, because nature intended for the organ to respond to this primal fear by increasing libido, which means more sexual activity and a new life can be formed. It's a primal response. Whether you're a single-celled organism or a Homo sapien, it has been programmed there by nature for survival. There is rhyme and reason. It is never random. Always check the life situation. It's not a deadly virus or bacteria or fungi. It's a perceived psychobiological, distressful life situation. The conflict's nature dictates the affected organ and the brain region controlling the SBS, or Senseful Biological Special Program. And we can see more common SBSs listed on this page. You'll begin to understand that each organ has its own brain and its own language. It is assigned to respond to a specific primal fear or conflict shock. When people tell me what cancer they have, more often than not, I already know what's going on in their lives. These are the roles that our organs play in line with our evolutionary biological drive to survive and adapt to perceived danger for the purpose of extending life, a primal response to primal fears. It's always been a primal drive for survival, and it has not changed in billions of years. We look at ductal breast cancer as a separation conflict, either by death or departure. The psyche perceives, torn from my breast, my child left and departed, and it was acute, unexpected. I feel all alone and caught off guard. What happened to my child? Where did she go? And the breast responds to that. Colon cancer is an unjust accusation, but it is near the rectum because it is a shitty situation. It's an indigestible anger. It caused me a lot of anger, and I can't digest this. I just can't accept it. For example, when someone is wrongly accused and wrongly jailed for 15 years, he develops colon cancer. The body is trying to get rid of all that shit and trying to digest it, and therefore the mass will appear in the colorectal area because it's trying to get rid of that shit that you can't digest. Again, what is this shit? Shitty people, shitty court cases, shitty divorce court cases, shitty policemen. And the body doesn't know the difference between real shit and figurative shit. Excuse my S word, sorry. And so on and so forth. So let's take a look at what the psyche perceives as conflict shocks that each organ can respond to. If sometimes you feel skipped heavy beats at night, it's a healing phase of an overwhelmed conflict by a person. And this is usually fielded by the myocardium, the heart muscle. And usually it's somebody who has too high standards. Could be mom and dad and a coach in childhood, or could be all of the above. A heart attack is a male tribute and it lands on the coronary arteries. It's a sort of self-devaluation, but a biological conflict is a territory loss for a man. His wife, his children, his job, his stature, a territory or property. Anything that gives him value as a man. When he loses it, he becomes a second wolf. If the conflict is active for more than 9 months, it will resolve as a fatal heart attack. If 6 months, there might be chest pains, but it won't be fatal. And we know the real cause of a heart attack is psychobiological. Women are protected from heart attacks by estrogen, as they are considered more biologically valuable since they carry life. An attack to the heart might be a scalpel during open heart surgery and the thought of being sliced open. It could also be an actual blow that landed on the heart area. For this, the pericardium steps up to the plate. Fatty liver is not due to eating too much fat, but rather repeated issues with money or financial woes. This is a starvation conflict. When we were single-celled, it was all about the food morsel. But now that we are modern and we are highly advanced, morsel is not just food, but actually money. If we don't have enough money, we can't put food on the table. This is the reason that a lot of people have liver issues. No, it is not from drinking or from eating too much fat. It's because a lot of people have financial woes. But it can also be brought on by too much dieting or refraining from eating favorite food because it's bad for me. Fasting might trigger it because it gives a signal of starvation or not having enough food. Liver cirrhosis is repeated scarring from conflict relapses related to a territorial anger or anger around territory taken from me, and it keeps happening and it costs me a lot of money. Like a tenant who doesn't want to leave and, is not paying rent, and it's causing me to have a starvation conflict. So 50% of people with this can develop ascites, which is part of an abandonment or existence conflict. And usually it can happen with a diagnosis of liver cirrhosis, since it is believed by the patients not to be a good prognosis. And the kidney usually feels existence conflicts, like I am no longer going to be living long enough, or I'm going to die, but not today, but I might in 6 months because I don't have money. And that brings us to the kidney. For kidneys, it's about water retention, high urea, and creatinine. And this goes back all the way to the primordial sea. People will feel bloated and feel like they gained weight in a short amount of time and can't seem to lose it. It's the body protecting you from your life situation of being abandoned and in danger by providing water and protein. Many people who are overweight have this conflict, but even skinny people can experience this conflict and not necessarily gain weight. I have a friend who was kicked out of her house by her mother-in-law, and she was on kidney dialysis for years. Now the lungs, when we look at lungs, lungs are life. Why? Because 2 minutes without air, you're dead. So therefore, air to the body, to the biology, is life. I had a friend who believed he would pass away at 50 because his dad died at 50. And this friend was only 42 and he was very afraid of death and was just expecting his whole life that it would end at 50. So he already had a fear of death. During the pandemic, he got COVID and it triggered a fear of death. He got an x-ray and was told that he had lung cancer. His fear of death doubled, tripled, quadrupled with a cancer diagnosis, giving him more lung lesions. And the reason that we have lung lesions is because the body wants to create little lungs to get you more air. So that's what it is, an air morsel. So of course the tumors kept growing and it was a looping conflict and it never had a good end. The fear of death is felt by so many, whether or not you smoke. And it can also be a substitute conflict where you feel the fear of death for a child or loved one who is sick. And we can tell if you have 1 or 2 nodules, the fear of death is over 1 or 2 people. But if there are many, many nodules, that fear of death is for oneself. When we feel bloated or gassy or constipated, there's usually an indigestible anger going on. As unicellular organisms, we could only muster up the gall from this organ whenever food was being taken from us or if we had to fight another, because this is where we get our gall. So this is usually where we muster up anger. We gather our energy from our digestive organs, as this is where we get our juice. So this could be anger, resentment, life situations you can't accept or stomach. Like, oh, dad showed up with another family and he has kids that he needs to support. So it's a life situation you can't accept, makes you angry. And this is fielded by our digestive organs, since they are in charge of breaking down morsels. If you experience nausea, this is the healing phase, as is diarrhea. Though with diarrhea, there is some sort of starvation element of not being allowed or not eating a particular food, or maybe even not being able to put food on the table. I have consultees who were wrongly jailed for 15 years and has colon cancer. This is an unjust accusation. Also, another whose property is being encroached upon by illegal residents and refused to leave. Also, another whose property is being encroached upon by illegal residents and refused to leave. There's also another whose wife left him for another man, and ugly divorce battles ensued. Every time you have bone, joint pain like arthritis, gout, lumbar pain, knee pain, foot pain, elbow pain, these are all in the healing phase of the bone program. The body osteolizes our bones with the intent to replace them with stronger material, much like you would do with an old sofa that has its frame eaten out by termites. You would take it down and replace it with a stronger frame. However, it hurts so much because the body only heals in a fluid environment, and during the healing phase, the skin around the bones, called the periosteum, stretches out when the healing fluid passes through. And this pain can be excruciating, especially when people have bone cancer as a secondary cancer to their original cancer diagnosis. And the pain accentuates at night due to vagatonia. If someone feels abandoned and is running the syndrome or kidney collecting tubules, the severity increases. A particular doctor that we know had lumbar and thoracic sarcoma. It is in the healing phase. But because the conflict activity of self-devaluation went on for 2 years, it is only appropriate that the sarcoma was that big. It is normal that it is painful, but it is temporary. So with the bones, often when we look at the bones, we look at self-devaluation or low self-esteem conflicts, which we all have. It really exists in all of nature. Why? Because when we look at a slumped being, we would often look at them as low, the tail is between the legs, they're less than, they feel small, as compared to somebody or an animal that is quite upright and they're confident, they're strong, they have high self-esteem. And the bones respond to the psyche perception of, I'm not smart enough, I am not supported, I'm not who I say I am, I can't keep up, I can't fight, I'm not good enough, I don't perform well, I'm no longer fast. And that's the reason also why a lot of elderly have a lot of bone issues, because often they have these narratives running in their psyche that I'm no longer as young as before, I'm not as pretty as before, I'm not as fast anymore, I can't play badminton or basketball the way I used to. And it often lands in the bones. They're the ones that step up to the plate. So here's what I'm proposing. When we know the psyche perception of potential conflicts triggered by a life situation, that is, of course, perceived distressful, and we reverse engineer the brain signaling the known organs and preempt it as much as you can. To a certain extent, this happens beneath our awareness, but with enough presence of mind, we might be able to downgrade the biological program so that it doesn't have to go to the advanced stages. Right? Controlling your biology so it doesn't control you. For me, Germanic Healing Knowledge, or Germanische Heilkunde, is the ultimate biohack there is. When you use the psyche as your key to immunity, there is no need to spend $1 gazillion on research and finding a cure and all these immunization programs. There's no need for expensive toxic injections, no need for expensive medication and supplements, no need for biohacking gadgets, though they are a bonus, no need to buy organic food because food does not cause cancer, but it can support a healing phase. So what I'm proposing is that we can spend dollars where it really matters and build health institutions that practice this health paradigm so we can finally put the power in the hands of the people. My wish is to see Dr. Hammer's legacy become a global reality. He wanted nothing but to give humanity the right to their freedom. And this knowledge belongs to everybody. We are blessed to be alive at this time because we are at a turning point in history where humans will own and control their own biology because we finally know what our brains are thinking. And I'd like you to dream of a future once thought impossible that is now becoming a reality. Join me as we embark on this adventure to change the course of our future our children's children with this empowering knowledge. Thank you so much for attending this talk. Please stay tuned for more talks under Germanische, Heilkunde, and Biohacking. In the meantime, please join my groups on Facebook, Biohacking Philippines, and Biohacking plus GHk Philippines. You can reach me through these IG handles, Coach Eli Abela and Biohacking Pioneer PH, and on Facebook as Eli Abela, Coach Eli Abela, and Biohacking Pioneer PH. Thank you so much, and I hope this has helped open your mind.